Ora Labora is the newest economic development game from Agricola's designer Uwe Rosenberg and Z-Man Games.
In Ora Labora, players are heads of a cloister who are trying to make their diocese the most valuable in the region. You can play with 1 to 4 players and it takes 2 to 3 hours.
Players begin Ora Labora by choosing either the France or the Ireland variant and then adjusting their buildings and goods accordingly. Each player begins the game with their Heartland landscape, which has 2 moor and 3 forest tiles, with their 4 available settlements, with 3 clergymen, and with 1 of each of the 6 basic good tiles, which are grain, livestock, coins, clay, peat, and wood.
Next, they build the production wheel, appropriate to the amount of players in the game, and they set the indicator so that the space marked with a large A has a value of 0. In that space are placed the indicators for the basic goods, as well as the joker. All of the starting buildings are then laid out for everyone to see, and all of the other buildings are grouped by symbol and stacked next to the wheel. All of the landscape tiles are ordered in terms of cost, and the game begins.
At the start of each round, the starting player token moves 1 player to the left, and any player who's got all 3 clergymen on the board gets them back. The indicator of the production wheel is moved counterclockwise 1 space. Now each round, all of the players are going to take 1 action in turn order, and then the starting player gets an extra action at the end of the round.
On their turn, a player can place a clergyman into a building in order to trigger its function. Or they can harvest peat or wood, or they can build a building. Now, a clergyman can only be placed in a building that's unoccupied, and a building's special function is only triggered when the clergyman enters it. Buildings can help you gather more goods, convert goods, or allow you to perform a special action.
Any building marked with the production wheel symbol is going to produce the amount of goods indicated by the position of that goods indicator on the wheel. The indicator is then moved back to the 0 space. Now the joker can stand in for any good type, and the advanced goods such as stone and wine get added into the game later on.
You can also pay 1 coin to another player as a work contract. So that means that that player has to place one of their clergymen in one of their buildings in their diocese, and you get the benefit from it. Once the winery or the whiskey distillery has been built, then the cost of a work contract goes up to 2 coins, but you can pay that cost with a gift of alcohol rather than coins if you'd like.
Now, cutting peat or trees doesn't require a clergyman. Instead, the player discards the forest or moor card and then collects wood or peat according to the position of the production wheel. To build a building, a player pays the cost indicated in its upper left and then places it on a terrain space of the appropriate type. Cloister buildings, which are marked in yellow, have to go adjacent to other cloister buildings. Now, a building, aside from having a function, is also going to provide you an economic value that's marked in a shield, and a dwelling value, which is marked in the red house.
If a player's prior is available, they can place the prior in a building that they've built to immediately access its function. Also, at any point during a turn, a player can convert grain into straw, or they can buy a landscape tile. Now, a landscape tile, if it's a district tile, goes above or below its heartland, and provides a forest or a peat bog. If it's a coastline, it goes to the left, and if it's mountains, it goes to the right, and these provide a unique terrain.
Now, there are 5 settlement phases in each game, and these are marked by the blue house token on the production wheel. During a settlement phase, each player can buy a landscape tile and then build a settlement. Settlements have a food and fuel cost, which can be paid for by goods with the appropriate symbol. At the end of the game, aside from their economic value, they're also going to provide their dwelling value plus the dwelling value of any adjacent buildings or settlements. At the end of each settlement phase, a new set of buildings and settlement types enter the game.
At the end of round 24, there's a special bonus round in which every player can either build a building or place their prior in a building to trigger its special function. Now, the prior can go into a building that's already occupied by another player at this point, or even owned by another player. After this, there's a settlement phase, and then all of the players add up their points from settlements, buildings, and goods, and the player with the most points is the winner.
So I really enjoyed Ora Labora, even more than I thought I would. It's got a huge amount of meaningful choices. The kinds of buildings that you build and the sort of goods or other things that you focus on are really quite varied. It's almost like a sandbox game in some ways, in that you can really choose a whole bunch of multiple paths to victory. If you make the inevitable comparison to Agricola, I'd say that it is a more challenging game, but it also feels like it's got more meat to it. There's more things to do, there's more interaction thanks to the way that work contracts and the production wheel work, and it generally feels like a more complex, challenging and sophisticated game. Now, all of that means that you're probably going to fall victim to analysis paralysis. This game's got a 2-hour runtime, but as you might have noticed, there's not actually that much for each player to do on their turn. Most of that time comes from decision making. Because there's so many paths to victory, because the choices you're making are limited and very challenging, you're going to spend a lot of time thinking about what you're going to do, and that may make the game drag for certain gaming groups.
So another potential negative to Ora et Labora is the fact that it is a little bit fiddly. Does feel like there's somewhat of unnecessary fiddliness in there. You've got double-sided tiles and double-sided cards and 3 rule books. Who knows why we have 3 rule books? But it can feel like there's a little bit of fiddliness in the game, which is not for everybody. However, those components are really nice. The color is really pretty. All of the building tiles are really intuitive. Everything is really put together very well. It's a very easy game to learn. So if you're a beginner at this game and you're paired up with a bunch of advanced players, it's not going to take you too long to really get the rules, really be able to dig your teeth into it. So it's a really nice game in that way. I really like the game, and I think that if you really like Agricola, you're probably going to enjoy Ora Labora as well.